He thought he was just burying a dead man. He didn't know he was walking into a prophecy 8 generations old. The map was hidden inside the warrior's shield, drawn on stretched elk hide, and it led to a valley that wasn't on any surveyor's chart. A place where an Apache clan had lived, completely hidden from the world, waiting for the man from the prophecy to arrive. This is the story of a lone cowboy named Eli, and a people who vanished from history's ledger to protect their way of life. Their paths were never meant to cross, but a dying warrior's final act forced a collision between two worlds. Now, Eli must answer a terrifying question. Is he the deliverance their prophecy foretold, or the doom they've been hiding from for 80 years? Eli Vance was a man who preferred the company of his horse and the open sky to that of other people. A former scout for the cavalry, he'd seen enough of what men did to one another to last a lifetime. Now he worked as a freelance mustanger, tracking wild horse herds across the Sonoran Desert. It was solitary, hard work, and it suited him just fine. His journey into the prophecy began on a day so hot the air shimmered like a ghost. He was tracking a stallion's print near a place the Mexicans called Las Agujas, the Needles, when he saw the buzzards, a dark, circling wheel in the stark blue sky. Against his better judgment, he rode toward them. What he found was not a dead animal. It was a man, an Apache warrior alone propped against a sun-bleached rock. He was alive, but only just. A rifle wound to the gut, days old, had festered. The warrior's eyes were closed, his breathing a shallow rasp. His clothes were not like any Apache attire Eli had seen during his scouting days. The leather was older, the beadwork patterns unfamiliar, almost archaic. Eli dismounted, his hand hovering near his colt. He spoke in the little Apache he knew. The warrior's eyes snapped open. They held no fear, only a profound, weary clarity. He looked at Eli, then at the harsh land around them, and seemed to come to a decision. With a trembling hand, he gestured to the round shield lying beside him. He made a motion of digging, then pointed to the earth. Eli understood. The man wanted a burial. He was choosing his rest. Using his saddle shovel, Eli began to dig in the hard soil. It took the better part of an hour. The whole time the warrior watched him, his gaze intense, as if memorizing Eli's face. When the grave was deep enough, Eli walked over to help him. The warrior shook his head once. With a final, staggering effort, he pushed himself to his feet. He picked up his shield, clutched it to his chest, and walked the last few steps to the grave under his own power. He lay down in the earth of his own volition, looking up at the sky. Then he closed his eyes and did not open them again. It was one of the most dignified deaths Eli had ever witnessed. He filled the grave, piling stones on top to keep the scavengers away. As he prepared to mount up, his boot kicked the warrior's shield. It had been left atop the stone pile, a final possession. Out of respect, Eli picked it up, meaning to leave it with the grave. That's when he felt the seam. Along the inside rim of the rawhide shield, barely perceptible, was a line of stitching. The thread was gut, tough, and nearly invisible against the leather. His scout's curiosity piqued. Eli used his knife point to carefully pick at it. The seam gave way, revealing a hidden pocket. Inside was a map. It was drawn on a thin, tan piece of elk hide, preserved with some kind of grease. The drawings were not the simple trails of a hunter. They were intricate. A winding path through canyon mazes Eli recognized as the Sierra Diablo *, the Devil's Mountains. But the path led to a central feature that made no sense. A vast, circular valley, drawn with a river and clusters of lodges, nestled in the heart of the most impassable rock in the territory. A valley that, according to every survey and cavalry map, did not exist. On the back of the hide, in faded charcoal, were symbols. Eli recognized some as Apache, a stylized sun, a figure of a man on horseback, but others were completely foreign, and at the very bottom was a sequence of dots and lines that looked less like writing and more like a count, a tally. Eli spent that night by a small fire, the map spread before him. The warrior had been alone, with no war party, no supplies. He was dozens of miles from any known Apache settlement. He had been carrying this, not toward help, but away from something. He had chosen to die alone in the wastes rather than lead anyone back to where he came from. Unless the person who found him performed a final act of respect, unless that person was curious enough and honorable enough to find the secret he carried. The map wasn't just directions, it was a test. The next morning, Eli made his choice. He would follow the map, not for treasure but for an answer. Who was that warrior? And what was he protecting so fiercely that he would take its location to a solitary grave? The first leg was through known territory, ancient trade routes used by the Pueblo peoples centuries before. Then the map led him off any known trail into a labyrinth of sandstone. For 3 days he navigated by the map's strange landmarks, a lightning-blasted pinnacle that looked like a crouching lion, a canyon where the wind whistled a perfect, single note. On the 4th day, he stood before a solid wall of rock. The map indicated this was the place. There was no opening, no pass, just impassable sheer cliff face stretching 200 feet up. He was about to dismiss the whole thing as a dead man's fantasy when a shift in the afternoon light revealed the shadow. Not a crack, but a fold. A narrow, twisting slot canyon, so perfectly aligned with the rock strata it was invisible from 10 feet away. Only at this exact hour, with the sun at this exact angle, did the entrance reveal itself as a thin, dark line in the stone. Eli led his horse into the gloom. The passage was so tight in places he had to turn sideways, the stone cold and smooth against his back. It climbed steadily for half a mile, the sky a thin blue ribbon far above. And then the walls simply fell away. He stepped out onto a rocky ledge, and the breath left his body. Below him, stretching for miles, was a valley of impossible green. A river snaked through its center, feeding stands of cottonwood and willow. He saw orderly fields of maize and squash, and dotting the meadows near the river were lodges, not the temporary wickiups of nomadic bands, but substantial, dome-shaped structures built for permanence. Smoke rose from cook fires. He saw figures moving, small as ants from this height. A community, a hidden community. The map was real. The warrior had come from here. And in that moment of stunned discovery, Eli made a fatal error. He stood silhouetted against the skyline. A shout echoed up from the valley floor. Then another. Figures pointed upward. Within seconds, a group of riders detached from the settlement and began climbing a hidden switchback trail on the valley wall with terrifying speed. They were coming for him. Eli had found the lost clan. Now he had to survive his welcome. There was nowhere to run. The switchback trail was the only way down, and it was now blocked by ascending riders. Eli stood his ground, his hands raised away from his Colt. The first warrior to reach the ledge was a man of about 40, his face a map of severe lines and old scars. He didn't speak. He simply looked from Eli's face to the shield Eli had tied to his saddle, and his eyes widened almost imperceptibly. He barked a command in a dialect Eli had never heard. 2 younger warriors dismounted and approached, their movements efficient and devoid of panic. They disarmed Eli, taking his rifle, pistol, and knife with a respect that felt more ritualistic than hostile. They did not bind his hands. The leader pointed down the trail. The message was clear: you will come with us. You will walk. The descent into the valley of the hidden river, as Eli would later learn it was called, was a journey through living time. The air grew cooler and carried the scent of damp earth and flowering sage. The fields he'd seen from above were immaculate, irrigated by clever stone canals that diverted water from the river. The dome-shaped lodges, called Gowa's asterisk, were built of woven willow and earth, sturdy and permanent. People stopped their work to watch the procession. Their clothing was similar to other Apache groups, buckskin and woven cloth, but the designs were different, older. The women's hair was braided with shells and bird bones instead of traded beads. The children did not run and hide. They stared with open, unnerving curiosity. Eli was taken to the center of the village, a cleared area around a great fire pit. A crowd gathered, silent and watchful. Then an elder emerged from the largest asterisk Gowa asterisk. He was ancient, his back bent, his face a landscape of wrinkles, but his eyes were the sharpest Eli had ever seen. This was Nanton, the headman. He looked at Eli, then at the shield carried by the warrior. He spoke a single word: Lujan. The warrior who had found Eli, the one with the scarred face, stepped forward and began to speak. He told of finding the outsider on the Spider Rock ledge. He told of the shield. As he spoke, the elder's gaze never left Eli. When the warrior finished, the elder, Nanton, spoke directly to Eli in slow, careful Spanish. "You carry the sun's shield of Clase. Where is he?" Eli understood. Clase was the warrior he had buried. He answered in his broken Apache, mixing in Spanish where his words failed. "He is at peace. I found him wounded near death. He asked for the earth. I gave it to him." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Nanton's expression did not change. "And the map, did you find it?" Eli nodded. He reached slowly into his shirt and pulled out the elk hide. He unfolded it and held it up. A collective intake of breath came from the people. Nanton stared at the hide for a long moment, then closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked not at Eli but at the people. He spoke in their tongue, his voice rising in what sounded like a formal declaration. When he finished, he turned back to Eli. "You have done what the map asked. You passed the test of the solitary one. You showed honor to the dead and curiosity without greed. Now you are here. The question is why?" Eli was given a small, empty gawa to stay in. He was not a prisoner, but he was not free. A young man named Chuli was assigned to watch him, or perhaps to guide him. Chuli spoke some Spanish, learned from his grandfather who had traded with Mexicans decades before the clan went into hiding. Over the next 2 days, through fragments of conversation with Chuli and observations, Eli pieced together the incredible truth. This was not just a hidden Apache band. They were the people who turned away. 8 generations ago, during the first great wars with the Spanish, a visionary leader named Dasodahi, which meant he who waits, had a powerful dream. He saw the coming tide of sickness, steel, and broken promises. He saw the destruction of the free Apache way. So he led his extended family, fewer than 100 souls, on an exodus deep into the most brutal mountains. They found this valley, protected by rock and myth, and they severed themselves from the world. They enacted a law: no one leaves unless it is to scout the outside and return with word. And no outsider may find the way and live unless the prophecy is fulfilled, Chuli said one evening as they sat by the river. "What prophecy?" Eli asked. Chuli's face grew solemn. "The dream of Dasodahi did not end with our hiding. It saw an end to it. He dreamed of a time when the danger outside would fade, when the world might be safe again for the old ways. And he dreamed of a sign. A man, not of the people, would come. He would come bearing the shield of a sentinel who had chosen to die in silence. This man would have a heart that honored death and a mind that could solve the path. His arrival would mean the choice was upon us, to remain hidden forever or to finally step back into the sun." Eli felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. "And you think I'm this sign?" "You are here," Chuli said simply. "You have Clase's shield. You solved his map. The elders are arguing. Some, like Nanton, believe you are the one from the dream. Others, like Degodi, the war chief, believe you are just a lucky cowboy, a threat that must be erased to protect the secret." The following morning, the argument reached its peak. Eli was summoned to the council fire. The entire clan was gathered. Nanton sat on one side, dignified and calm. On the other sat Degodi, a powerful man with fierce eyes, his arms crossed. The tension was a physical thing in the air. Degodi spoke first, his Spanish sharp and accusatory. "You found a dead man and a piece of hide. This is not magic, this is chance. You will tell others, soldiers will come, our home will be destroyed. The only safety is to remove the threat." His meaning was clear. Nanton raised a hand. "The dream was specific. The test was the map. He passed it. His actions define him. He showed asterisk Gaju asterisk. Eli knew that word. It meant harmony, balance, a state of rightness. It was a sacred concept. His actions define nothing, Degodi countered. He is one man. His word against our survival. Let him prove it. Let him face the asterisk D and asterisk test. A profound silence fell. Even Degodi looked slightly surprised at his own words. Nanton's old eyes narrowed. That has not been done in 5 generations. Then it is time, Degodi said, his gaze locking on Eli. If he is truly the one from the dream, the spirits will grant him power. If he is not, the spirits will judge him. Eli had no idea what they were talking about, but the reaction of the crowd told him it was deadly serious. Chuli, standing at the edge of the circle, looked pale. Nanton studied Eli for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he nodded. So be it. The outsider will seek a vision. He will go to the place of echoes and fast for 3 days. If he returns with a true vision, a sign for the people, he is the prophecy. He will be under my protection and we will heed the dream's call. If he returns with nothing or does not return at all, the matter is settled by the spirits themselves. It was a death sentence disguised as a trial. Degodi smiled, a cold, satisfied thing. Eli was to be taken into the sacred canyon, left with only water, and expected to have a divine revelation. Without training, without belief, in a land whose spirits were foreign to him. He was given until sunset to prepare. Chuli came to him, his face grim. I am sorry. Degodi has forced the old way. The place of echoes, it is where our shamans go to seek power. It is said the veil between worlds is thin there. But for one not prepared, the mind can break. Many have not returned. Do I have a choice? Eli asked. Chuli shook his head. To refuse is to admit you are a false sign. Degodi would have his way. As the sun dipped toward the western rim of the valley, 2 warriors came for him. They led him away from the village, up a side canyon he had not seen. The walls closed in, glowing red in the fading light. The air grew still and cold. After an hour's walk, they stopped before a small, dark cave entrance at the base of a cliff. One of the warriors handed him a water skin. 3 days, the warrior said. Then they turned and left, melting into the twilight. Eli stood alone before the yawning darkness. This was not a test of strength or skill. It was a test of spirit. And as he ducked into the cold, silent mouth of the cave, he knew the truth. The hidden clan's fate wasn't the only thing hanging in the balance. His sanity and his very soul were now the stakes. The first night in the cave was not about visions. It was about silence. A silence so deep and heavy it pressed against Eli's eardrums. He sat near the entrance, watching the stars wheel across the narrow slit of sky. His thoughts were a storm of fear and absurdity. He was a cowboy from Texas, sitting in a sacred Apache cave, waiting for a sign from spirits he didn't believe in. The sheer impossibility of it almost made him laugh. Almost. By midday of the second day, the hunger had shifted from a gnawing ache to a dull, constant hum. The thirst was worse. He sipped his water with monastic discipline. But it was the isolation that began to work on him. With no human voice, no wind, no animal cry, his own mind became the only sound. Memories surfaced unbidden. The face of a cavalry friend dead in an ambush. The accusing eyes of a Cheyenne woman whose husband he had guided troops to. The vast, empty loneliness of his own life. The cave was not showing him spirits. It was reflecting his own soul back at him, and the image was bleak. On the second night, the dreams began. Not visions, but fractured, fevered dreams. He saw the warrior class, not dying but standing whole, pointing back the way Eli had come. He saw the map on the hide catch fire, but the flames were cold. He woke with a start, his heart hammering, the cave pitch black. That's when he heard it, a whisper, not in his ear but in his mind. A single word in the Apache tongue. Gaju asterisk. Harmony, balance. He pushed it away as a trick of his starved mind. But the word returned, a soft, insistent pulse beneath his anxiety. As the third day dawned, a strange calm settled over him. The fear was still there, but it was distant. He stopped waiting for a grand vision. He simply sat and observed. He noticed how the light moved across the cave wall, painting a slow, golden stripe that took hours to travel from one mineral seam to another. He saw the intricate patterns in the rock like frozen waves. He felt the immense, patient age of the stone around him. For the first time, he wasn't looking asterisk for asterisk something. He was just present. And in that state of empty acceptance, it came. It wasn't a dream. He was wide awake. The light on the wall seemed to coalesce, to brighten beyond the sun's ability. It formed the shape of the valley below, but in the vision it was not hidden. A great road made of iron and smoke cut through the mountains to the north. The sounds of many people speaking in tongues he did not know filled the air. Then the image shifted. He saw the clan's fields, but they were barren. The gawas stood empty, doors flapping in a silent wind. The vision carried no feeling of threat, only a profound, irrevocable sense of asterisk change. An ending and a beginning woven together. Then a final image. A single cottonwood tree by the river, older than any he had seen, and beneath it 2 figures sat facing each other. One was Nanton, the elder. The other was himself, Eli, but older, his face lined with a piece he did not currently possess. Between them they held a single piece of black obsidian, passing it back and forth. As suddenly as it came, the light faded back to normal. The vision was over. Eli sat trembling, not from fear, but from a certainty that had been carved into his bones. He had seen. He didn't understand it, but he had seen asterisk. When the warriors came at sunset of the 3rd day, they found him waiting at the cave mouth. He was gaunt, his eyes sunken, but his gaze was clear. They said nothing, but their demeanor had changed. A flicker of something, awe or caution, was in their eyes. They guided him back to the village. The entire clan was gathered at the council ground. The air crackled with anticipation. Nanton and Degodi stood at the center. Degodi looked smug, confident. He expected a broken man or a corpse. When he saw Eli walking upright, his expression tightened. Nanton stepped forward. "You have returned. What did the spirits of the place of echoes show you?" Eli took a deep breath. He described what he had seen using simple words: the iron road, the sounds of strangers, the empty valley, the old cottonwood tree, and the 2 men sharing the stone. As he spoke, the people listened, their faces unreadable. When he finished, there was a long silence. Degodi snorted. "This is nothing. A hungry man's dream. Visions of roads and empty houses. This is not a sign for the people. It is the rambling of an outsider's fear." But Nanton was staring at Eli, his ancient eyes piercing. "The stone," Nanton said softly. "The black stone. What did it look like?" Eli thought. It was smooth like glass. One edge was sharp, it caught the light. A murmur different from before ran through the elders. Nanton turned slowly to Degodi. "He has described the talking stone of Dasodahi. It has been lost for 5 generations. It was last seen by my grandfather's grandfather. No living person knows its shape. It is kept in the secret description, passed only from headman to headman." Degodi's confidence shattered. He could have guessed, a lucky guess. "And the cottonwood," Nanton pressed, his voice gaining strength. "The great tree by the bend in the river where the first asterisk gawa was built. The one that died and was struck by lightning 2 winters ago. The one that is now a stump." Eli felt a chill. He had seen the tree in full leaf. He had not seen the stump. Nanton addressed the people, his voice ringing out. "He has seen the past future. He has seen the lost stone with the headman and the living tree that is now dead. His eyes have walked where only spirit can walk. This is no accident. This is D in asterisk. This is power." The crowd's mood shifted palpably. Where there was suspicion, now there was wonder. Degodi saw his influence slipping. In a last desperate move, he pointed a shaking finger at Eli. "So he has seen things. What does it mean?" "It means change. It means the end of our safety. He is not a sign of hope. He is the bringer of the end he saw. His vision proves my point. He will destroy us." Before Nanton could respond, a shout came from the valley's entrance. A young sentinel, breathless from running, burst into the circle. He spoke rapidly to Nanton, his words tumbling out. The color drained from the old man's face. Nanton turned to the crowd, his earlier triumph gone, replaced by grave urgency. The vision, it has already begun. The sentinel reports dust to the north, many horses, men with long rifles following the old trails. They are not yet at the hidden entrance, but they are searching. They are perhaps 2 days away. A wave of panic swept through the people. Degote's face twisted in vindictive fury. You see, the outsider has led them to us. He is a scout. I came alone, Eli shouted, finding his voice. No one followed me, I made sure of it. Then how? Degote screamed. Chuli stepped forward, his voice small but clear. Classe, he said. All eyes turned to him. The sentinel who died, he was wounded, he was pursued. Perhaps he was not followed to asterisk his death. Perhaps he was followed after asterisk. The horrifying truth dawned on Eli. He had buried Classe, he had taken the shield. But what if Classe's pursuers had found his grave? What if they had found the tracks of a single horse, Eli's horse, leading away from it? He had covered his trail, but he was one man. A determined tracking party could have pieced it together. He had not led them here, but his act of mercy, his following of the map, might have given them the final thread to pull. The prophecy was real, and it had delivered not just Eli to the clan, but the clan's greatest fear to their doorstep. The hidden world was about to be found, and standing between the people who turned away and the approaching tide of the outside world was a tired, hungry cowboy who had seen a vision he couldn't fully understand. Nanton looked at Eli, not with blame, but with a terrible, weighted expectation. The dream said your coming would bring the choice. The time to choose is now. Will you help us vanish again, deeper into the unknown, or will you help us face what comes? The fate of a people and the meaning of a 300-year-old prophecy now rested on Eli's next decision. And in the distance, the dust of approaching men continued to rise. Eli's choice was not a choice at all. The vision in the cave had shown him the empty valley. It had shown him the iron road. He looked at the faces around him, Nanton's weary hope, Degote's burning anger, the quiet fear of the families. They had been hiding for 300 years. Another flight would only delay the inevitable. The world outside was growing smaller every year. There was no deeper unknown left to flee into. We face them, Eli said, his voice carrying across the silent council ground. But not with weapons. We face them with a story they cannot ignore. Degote scoffed. You would have us talk to wolves. No, Eli said, turning to Nanton. I would have you show them a ghost, and I would have you make me your messenger. He laid out his plan. It was audacious, and it relied entirely on the very thing Degote feared, the outside world's greed and its short memory. The men coming were not the U.S. cavalry. The sentinel's description suggested they were bounty hunters or rough prospectors, the kind who followed rumors of renegade Apache for reward money. They were looking for a fight or for captives to sell. They were not looking for a myth. Eli, with Chuli as his guide, would go out to meet them, but not as a cowboy. He would go as something else entirely. They worked through the night. The clan's artisans brought out items not used in generations, ceremonial regalia from the time before the hiding. A headdress of golden eagle feathers that belonged to Dasotahi himself. A buckskin shirt painted with archaic symbols of power and spirit. They dressed Eli in these relics. They painted his face with white clay and charcoal, patterns that signified a messenger from the spirit world. Just before dawn, Nanton brought Eli the final object. From a deerskin pouch, he drew out a piece of black obsidian. It was smooth, one edge sharp, and it caught the firelight exactly as Eli had seen in his vision. The talking stone. You described this, Nanton said, placing it in Eli's hand. It was cold and surprisingly heavy. It is not lost. It has been waiting. It is the stone of truth. Hold it when you speak. Let them see it. As the sun rose, Eli and Chuli rode out of the hidden entrance. They did not hide their trail. They rode toward the dust. They found the party at mid-morning. There were 8 men, hard-faced and heavily armed, led by a grizzled tracker named Rourke. They had indeed found Classy's grave and then Eli's trail. When they saw the 2 riders approaching, they fanned out, rifles coming up. Eli reined in his horse 100 yards away. He raised an empty hand. Then slowly, he put on the eagle feather headdress. The effect was instantaneous. The men stiffened, confusion and superstitious fear flashing across their faces. A white man in full Apache holy regalia was not something their minds could easily process. Rourke shouted, "You there, identify yourself." Eli kicked his horse forward, Chuli following a pace behind. He stopped within speaking distance, holding the obsidian stone clearly in his raised hand. He spoke in English, his voice pitched low and steady. "My name is of no consequence to you. I am a voice for those who have none. You are following a dead man's path. The warrior you hunted died alone. He is buried. The people he protected are not here." Rourke squinted, his rifle still half raised. "We heard different. We heard there was a hidden band out here, worth a lot of money to the right people." "You heard a ghost story," Eli said, holding the black stone higher. The sun glinted off it. "The people you seek vanished from this world 3 lifetimes ago. They exist now only in the spirit lands. I am a seer, a walker between worlds. I was sent to find the warrior's spirit and lay it to rest. You are trespassing in a sacred place. The air here is thin between life and death. Can you not feel it?" He gestured to the desolate, silent canyon around them. The men glanced uneasily. The sheer, oppressive silence of the desert, combined with Eli's bizarre appearance, was working on them. "You expect me to believe you're some kind of witch doctor," Rourke sneered, but the sneer was weak. "I expect you to believe your own eyes," Eli said. He pointed to Chuli. "My guide is of the people, but he is the last. He tends the sacred places so that the spirits do not grow angry and walk into the world of the living. You have already disturbed 1 grave. Do you wish to disturb more?" One of the younger men in Rourke's party spoke up, his voice nervous. "Boss, look at his horse's shoes. They're worn smooth. He ain't been riding on normal stone. That's spirit ground wear." It was a brilliant, unscripted observation. The volcanic glass of the hidden valley's floor had worn Eli's horse's shoes unnaturally smooth, a perfect detail to sell the myth. Eli saw the doubt solidify in Rourke's eyes. Greed was warring with a deeper, older fear. The fear of the unknown, of curses, of stepping where man was not meant to step. "There is no gold here," Eli said, his final blow. "No captives, only dust and memories and very angry ghosts. The warrior you followed was the last. Turn around. Take your men back to the world of the living. This place is not for you." He then did something that made even Chuli tense. He turned his back on the armed party and began riding slowly back toward the Slot Canyon, the entrance to the hidden valley. It was the ultimate act of apparent fearlessness. He was showing them the path and daring them to follow. For a long minute there was only the sound of the wind. Then Rourke cursed. "This is a waste of time. This is bad medicine. I ain't getting cursed for no $50 bounty. We're leaving." The party turned. They rode north, back the way they came, moving faster than when they had arrived. Eli and Chuli watched from the shadow of the canyon until the dust settled. They had not won a battle. They had sold a story so strange and unsettling that it overrode greed. Back in the valley, the clan waited in agonized silence. When Eli and Chuli returned, word spread like a flood. They had faced the wolves, and the wolves had turned tail. The relief was immense, but it was followed by a sobering realization. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but not as a fairy tale. The hidden world had been touched. Its secrecy was forever compromised. That evening, the final council was held. Nanton spoke to his people. "The dream of Dasodahi has come to pass. The outsider came, the choice was given. We chose to stand and we stand still, but we cannot hide again. The world will not stop coming. The vision Eli saw, the iron road, the many voices, that is the future. It is time to stop being the people who turned away. It is time to become the people who choose how to meet the world. It was decided. They would not abandon their valley, but they would no longer live as phantoms. They would send out cautious envoys, not to hide, but to learn, to register their existence with the Indian Agency on their own terms as a sovereign band that had always been here, a fact everyone had simply forgotten. They would control the narrative. Degodi stood. To everyone's surprise, he did not protest. He walked to Eli and placed his hunting knife on the ground at Eli's feet, a gesture of supreme respect. You face the enemy without blood. This is a harder path. I do not understand it, but I will follow Nanton, and I will follow the sign the spirits sent. As for Eli, his path was clear. He had come as a curiosity, survived as a test, and stayed as a witness. Nanton approached him as the council dispersed. You have a home here, Eli Vance, but your vision showed you sitting with me under the cottonwood, sharing the stone. The tree is gone, but the river remains. Will you stay and help us build the new path? Will you be our bridge? Eli looked at the peaceful valley, at the people who were no longer shadows. He thought of his empty life on the outside. He had found a people, a purpose, and in the steadfast eyes of Nanton, something akin to the father he'd lost as a boy. The man in my vision was at peace, Eli said. I'd like to meet him. He stayed. The final surprise came a week later, during the rebuilding of the council lodge near the old cottonwood stump. As they dug the new post holes, Chuli's shovel struck something hard. It was a pottery vessel, sealed with pine pitch. Inside were not artifacts but papers, brittle, faded letters in Spanish and one in English. The English letter was dated 1847. It was from a mountain man named Jeremiah Cole, who had stumbled upon the valley decades after the clan had gone into hiding. He had spoken with the then headman. He wrote of his amazement and concluded with a promise. Your secret is safe with me. I will tell no one, but I will leave this record so that if the world ever finds you again, it will know you chose this peace, and that a white man once honored that choice. Jeremiah Cole was Eli's grandfather. The prophecy had not begun with Eli finding the map. It had begun generations before, when his own blood made a vow of silence. Eli had not been drawn to the valley by chance. He had been called home by a promise his family had made long ago. He was not the first outsider to find them. He was the first to return. On that realization, the last piece of the vision clicked into place. The iron road was change, inevitable and roaring. The empty valley was the old way of life, ending. And the two men sharing the stone under the tree, that was the present moment. That was now. A past promise and a future choice, meeting in the hands of the living, forging a new harmony. The hidden clan was hidden no more. But in choosing how to step into the light, they had found a power greater than secrecy. They had found their own voice. And the solitary cowboy, who had thought he was just burying a dead man, finally found the family and the peace he had been searching for all his life. The story of the Valley of the Hidden River is not an ending. It is a different kind of beginning. For decades, the tale was whispered among a few old-timers in New Mexico territory. A cowboy who rode into the desert and never rode out. A lost band of Apache who were more ghost than flesh. Most dismissed it as another desert mirage, a folktale born from heat and loneliness. But as we've seen, the most compelling legends are often built on a framework of truth. The truth of a people's incredible will to survive. The truth of a prophecy that was less about predicting the future and more about preparing the heart for it. And the truth that sometimes, a man running from his own emptiness stumbles directly into a purpose so vast it fills all the hollow spaces. Eli Vance and the people who turned away did not vanish. According to sparse but consistent records from the Indian Agency in the 1890s, a small, previously unregistered Apache band made formal contact. They claimed ancestral tenure over a remote valley in the Sierra Diablo. Their spokesman was listed as a man named Elijah Vance, interpreter and liaison. They were never forced onto a reservation. In a time of great darkness and displacement for native peoples, they managed to negotiate a protected status for their valley, in part due to the meticulous maps and genealogies they provided, proof of continuous habitation. They traded on their own terms, their exquisite basketry and metalwork becoming quietly famous. They chose their integration, preserving the core of their way of life while no longer living in fear of the outside world. This is the real power of the story. It's not about finding hidden gold or a warrior's treasure. It's about finding something more valuable, a choice. The clan chose to stop being a secret. Eli chose to stop being alone. In a historical moment defined by taking and conquest, this is a story about giving and receiving, about a debt of honor between two strangers that echoed across generations until it was fulfilled. It asks us a lingering question. How many other stories were lost because no one was there to listen? How many threads of history snapped because the right person wasn't there at the right time to tie them back together? The wilderness of the American West was never truly empty. It was full of stories, waiting for someone with the patience and the respect to read them. If you found yourself captivated by this journey into the space between legend and history, consider subscribing. We dedicate ourselves to unearthing these forgotten narratives, to giving voice to the whispers the past leaves behind. Every subscription helps us dive deeper. Thank you for listening. Wherever you are, remember, the most important maps aren't always drawn on paper. Sometimes they're etched in the choices we make and the promises we keep long after the cartographers have gone home.